Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I don't say nice things about you very often on this show, and for very good reason, as the listeners are undoubtedly aware. But right before we started this show, we were trying to find the box score for the 2025 Ohio State spring game to fact check something, and your one and only superpower shone through once again. If you ever wonder what outlet was Tony Gerdeman working for in any given spring, just Google Ohio State spring game box score and then year, and Tony Gerdeman has the greatest SEO abilities in this one particular area, and he is undefeated, absolutely undefeated in this area. So Tony, excellent job. It's much like the Easter Bunny, you only work one day a year, but man, you really deliver on that one day.
You're welcome. You are welcome. Everybody's welcome out there. I know, Tom, you're not the only person that thanks me for this. You're just the only person that does so publicly. I get a lot of private letters, emails, uh, everybody thanking me, video messages, of course. So you're all welcome. I don't respond to any email because I don't want to encourage it, and I don't want to encourage further correspondence. But everybody's seen, everybody's heard. Let's move on. This is embarrassing for me. Tom, we're going to continue our series on expectations for the year two Buckeyes, for the guys who were true freshmen in 2025 and are now expecting to do more. And one guy that we're talking about today, Phillip Bell, wide receiver, played in 3 games last year, 21 snaps, no catches, no touches of any kind. Yes, the expectations are you're going to do more this year. Now, where will he do it? He's spent his time in the slot, but he's big enough. He's 6'1", 200. He can play elsewhere as well, and I think that's one of the things that, if I recall correctly, Ryan Day talking about him on the signing day when he used to do signing day press conferences, that he's versatile enough and he's big enough, and we see that in his high school tape. Here he played inside, he played outside, and he's a guy that can do that for Ohio State. And the fact that Ohio State brought in 2 guys that can, or at least Kyle Parker can play inside and outside from the portal, might make the path a little bit more difficult to playing time this year. I think that's just a matter of you can't just continue to wait for the young guys to step up. They're going to have to climb and then climb over, which is how, like Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, the good ones, the great ones will climb over, and you can't just keep waiting their turn. Phillip Bell, though, his versatility and the year that he had last year, just learning. I always wonder, like, just how, and I've talked to players about this, just like how frustrating, infuriating. You're just waiting your time. You're doing all of this, and you don't play, and it fuels you towards your second year, and then I guess players respond differently. But it's going to be interesting to see how he responds this spring, and then over the course of the summer and fall camp, to being closer than ever to playing.
Yeah, that's always such an interesting dynamic for these guys because if you are playing football at Ohio State for basically as long as you have been a football player, you have always been the best player on your high school team, middle school team, Pop Warner team, whatever it is. You have always been an athletic freak and have been able to do things that other people just can't do. And so then to go from that and to be, the offense runs through you if you're on offense. And it doesn't matter what position you play, the offense runs through you because no one can match up with you in your high school. And then to go to college where you are going from being the biggest fish in the small pond to being just one of many, many fish in a very large pond. That's always a difficult adjustment, I think, for guys. And you will see people who in year one go, I don't belong here, and who transfer out. And so when a guy has a season like that where it is a year of watching and a year of waiting and they stick it out, that's generally a pretty decent sign that, okay, they are using this for the right, to point them in the right direction for the upcoming year. For Phillip Bell, where he is, given his versatility, given what is on the depth chart ahead of him, this is not, Carnell Tate is gone. Carnell Tate is not walking through that door. And Quincy Porter is gone. Mylan Graham is gone. there are other guys in that room, and I think there are guys who Jeremiah Smith is still there. Don't worry, and you're bringing in some very talented true freshmen in Chris Henry and Jaquaden Guilford, and you've got other guys who I think we could have Des Jones in this conversation, and we're going to say a lot of the same things probably about Des Jones that we do about Phillip Bell. There's going to be opportunities there, and then it's just a matter of, okay, how much time are you going to earn? I'm not expecting Phillip Bell to win the starting job week 1 this year, but can Phillip Bell get himself into the rotation? Because I was mentioning all the guys who are gone. Bryson Rogers also gone. There are there's a lot of opportunity out there, and at this point, it's very hard for us to be able to say, yeah, this is the guy who's going to seize that opportunity. It's going to be this guy and not that guy. We're going to find out a lot more in spring ball, but I think the opportunity is there for some kind of a much more significant role on this 2026 Ohio State team for Phillip Bell.
Yeah, I think we've decided that you'll see more of a rotation than you have in the past, because you've got 4 guys right now who have all played, and Jeremiah Smith and Brandon Ennis and Kyle Parker and Devin McEwen. So they're all used to playing, and you wouldn't have brought those 2 transfers in to not play. And Brandon Ennis is going to play, Jeremiah Smith probably going to play. So you already know there's going to be some sort of a significant rotation. And the key to rotating is that the guys towards the bottom aren't so towards the bottom that they can't reach the top. Like the disparity between the top and the bottom, the closer that is, the easier it is to rotate, which is why I think it was easier prior to Brian Hartline when, you had Austin Mack and Garrett Wilson as a young guy. Like there's not a lot of disparity there, as opposed to like Jackson Smith and Jigba versus whomever. And so can Phillip Bell rise up to where he's not that much of a drop off from Kyle Parker or Brandon Ennis? And you're talking about 2 guys that combined probably averaged 9 yards a catch last year. So I'd say that it's not impossible, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's an avenue there. Now, will he get there? We will see. And you talk about the spring game last year, 3 catches for 30 yards, including a touchdown. As we know, how you do in the spring game is how you'll do in life. But
that's not true of spring game box score SEO, though, for some reason.
No, it is certainly not. With him, you hear like he's crafty, he's this, he's that, and anytime like I view him as crafty, watching him in his high school highlights and then watching him at OSU, not the biggest guy, not the fastest guy, but he gets open. And when you say that, that means, well, he's kind of limited athletically. It's like, I don't know that he is, but I don't see him as this 4-3 Z running down the field. Can he be KJ Hill, like a bigger KJ Hill? I think most teams would take that. And right now what Ohio State has in the slot has not been productive enough. Will that change this year? I mean, I think it has to. I think, you can't go with Brandon Ennis, and he's going to continue to play, but you can't have him at 7.5 yards a catch again. I think his numbers would be helped if Julian Sahan saw him better over the course of the season. Some of these deep throws downfield that Brandon Ennis is also breaking open on didn't hit him. Maybe a more focus on some of those would help the position overall. But right now, if you're to put a depth chart on it, like I don't know where he fits in. Is he third? He's battling Des Jones for third in the slot, right? Just thinking off the top of my head. Do they prefer him outside because of the lack of depth overall there, because there's just a lot of young guys and not a lot of old guys? Do they want him outside more? So I'll be interested to see where he starts out this spring and where we see him moving around from play to play.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different potential paths here. This is a little bit of a choose your own adventure where you're going to start the spring wherever they start the spring, and maybe that's third-ish on the depth chart in the slot. But if he has a good spring, could he move outside? Yeah, absolutely. Could he end up earning a bigger role in the slot? Yeah, absolutely. There's so much unknown right now with the wide receivers outside of Jeremiah Smith. How much better can Brandon Ennis be? Because we know Brandon Ennis is really, really liked and respected and team captain, but you need more than 7.5 yards a catch out of him. And as you said, there's more than just Brandon Ennis that goes into Brandon Ennis having 7.5 yards a catch last year, but you need more out of that spot than that. Brandon Ennis is going to be a part of that position, whether that's as a starter, whether that's as the sole player there, whether that's as a rotational guy there. He's going to be there one way or another. Then the question is just, okay, who else ends up filling in that spot? Who ends up showing out in spring ball and earning a bigger role there? Because they don't typically treat the wide receiver room exactly like they do offensive line, where it's like, okay, who's your best five? And you go from there, and then you figure out who the best five is, and then you figure out the lineup from there. They do tend to be a little bit more positional, where you need to have someone who's a little bit of a field stretcher there. But that was how they did it under Brian Hartline. How are they going to do it under Cortez Hankton? How are they going to do it in an Arthur Smith involved offense? How is that going to change? There's just a lot of variables here that I feel like I have a relatively low degree of certainty on exactly what Phillip Bell's role in this team is, because he could be someone who's in the rotation in the slot. He could be someone who's in the rotation outside, but you've got all these different pieces, and you're bringing in Parker, you're bringing in McEwen, you get your transfers who are coming in, and how are they going to translate? There's a lot of unknowns here that I think the thing that I can say with the most certainty is Phillip Bell is going to have a bigger role in 2026 than he had in 2025. How big of a role? We're out of time. Ask again later. Answer unclear. Ask again later.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and write this down, Tom. I'll go with 6 catches for 79 yards and a touchdown, which is exactly Bryson Rogers' stats from 2025. And very close to Marlon Graham's. I don't know how much there will be this year, especially with, Arthur Smith loves the tight ends. We'll see how that impacts playing time for the receivers as well. So there you go. Some thoughts on what to expect from Phillip Bell this year as a redshirt freshman. Again, there's a long line of Ohio State redshirt freshman wide receivers who do just a little, but then continue to blossom after that. So even if you have a lackluster redshirt freshman year, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that you won't do something more at Ohio State. As I always say, ask Terry McLaurin and Paris Campbell and Johnny Dixon and Michael Thomas and see what they have to tell you about it. So there you go. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. If you're listening, a 5-star rating and review. And, of course, you can find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com talking about Phillip Bell, talking about the entire wide receiver position and everything else regarding the Ohio State Buckeyes. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all later.